batteries that had to be replaced by the spacewalkers manually. We also had another pallet that had 3 small Japanese experiments. These are the rectangular boxes you see on the video right now. And these were installed on the porch at 3 different locations and are still up there. They will remain exposed to the vacuum of space for several months to come so that we can learn more about materials and communications. Several times you will see those teams of 2. So you had to get along to be a robotics operator on this flight because you had to interact very much with the spacewalkers who were outside, but you also had to work very closely with at least one other person, and it was never the same one, it seemed. But this was a very rewarding flight, and the cohesion between the teams on the ground were also extraordinary.
So to accomplish the 5 EVAs, we had a 4-person team to do so, which meant we had to have 4 spacesuits, which are essentially a one-man spacecraft. These suits, the parts and components of it are sort of loose and about the consistency of a very heavy Gore-Tex jacket when you assemble them all. Then when you apply the pressure, it gets to 4.5 pounds of pressure difference between the ambient pressure, and then it gets its rigidity and stiffness. Now, in the vacuum of space, 4.5 pounds of pressure absolute equates to about 28 to 29,000 feet. So if any of you have mountain climbing experience, you know that to climb Mount Everest, you need to breathe pure oxygen. So we do that same thing inside the suit during the spacewalks. The robotic activity and the EVA activity is highly integrated and choreographed. And if you can imagine a person's attitude changing throughout an EVA, if he says left or right or up and down, that can mean all kinds of different things to a robotic person who's giving those inputs onto the arm. So in order to, the robotics folks are driving us into very tight, restricted places where there's a high degree of concern about the arm hitting structures. So in order to avoid that, we have to rehearse and train the communication between the two. It's largely a construction outside when we do these spacewalks, so to do that we need special tools. Some of them are not so special, just a regular cordless drill and some sockets that go on that drill. Fortunately, most of the bolts are all the same size, so we can kind of minimize the socket swaps. But when we get to the point where it's time to install those large pieces of equipment, here you can see Dave holding one of them. It's again, a coordinated activity between the robotics person driving him in and the other crewmate helping to hold down that piece of gear while he drives the bolt. You can imagine if your feet weren't held down in some fashion, when you pull the trigger, you would spin around the bolt instead of the bolt going the direction you want. Julie mentioned we changed out some batteries on the space station. These batteries were fairly large. They'd been up there on the Port 6 solar array for about 10 years, and their capacity was degrading. As you can imagine, a battery being charged and discharged every 45 minutes for 10 years. That's what was the case here. In this particular video, you can see the motion imparted on the arm. The arm was fully stretched out to its max reach, and with 2 heavy guys and heavy equipment coming on and off of it, we were inducing a known amount of movement into the arm, so that was all taken into account as well. Working on the back porch of the Japanese section is a real treat because there's windows right there where other set of eyes inside the vehicle can help you when you're a spacewalker out there trying to accomplish tasks. Your visibility is a little bit limited inside the suit, so it's nice to have other folks giving you any direction you need. We also installed 2 external cameras on that porch that are used to help with the payload experiments on the Japanese section. In that corner there, you can see maybe there's a small metal wire that's going through Tom's work area, and that's what we used as a safety tether to keep us tethered to the station as we do our walks.
Definitely hard to tweet with the gloves on. Yep. Inside, we don't have to wear the spacesuit, and it is fun to play, and zero gravity is fun, but our real job is research, and we do it in several areas. We do microgravity research that can't be done in the presence of gravity on human physiology, materials, even tissue engineering and cancer research, shedding new insights into these areas. We look at the Earth and understand the human impact on the environment so we can develop rational countermeasures to such impact based on real data. And we developed systems for long-duration spaceflight that will be used later for Moon and Mars missions, deep space exploration. It may be a vehicle not unlike this space station, at least on the inside, that goes to Mars. Some of the people listening here may end up being the ones doing that. We do know that 16 countries have joined together, and they all want to be part of a first-class, top-notch space program. They know it's a source of inspiration for all their countries and ours, and we're at a crossroads now in determining the future of our space program. And Roman is at the crossroads of making his breakfast famous tacos in space. Very daring. Chris cleans the filters. You have to maintain your spacecraft as you would your home. Exercising on the bicycle.
We spent 11 days docked the space station, and it was finally time to go home, completing all our objectives for the docked operations. And one of our last major objectives was to make sure Koichi was on the right side of the hatch with us when we left. Otherwise, his family would have not been happy with us. Next thing we get to do is a fly around. We do a complete 360-degree fly around of the space station, and the primary purpose of that is to document the external portion of the space station to make sure there's no damage from micrometeorites or other possible damage that it may have incurred during our mission and since the last space shuttle mission. And then the secondary thing that you get to see is this just tremendous view of this orbiting complex over the Earth. On the flight deck, during our fly around, there was not a lot of room around the windows. Everybody was kind of trying to get a look, and of course we took some great photographs as well. You can see here Endeavour from the space station firing jets as we try to maintain our position around the space station.
After undocking, we had 2.5 days left, and we had a chance to deploy a couple of satellites. This is actually the full day before we came home, last full day. This is a satellite that was built and designed by graduate students from Texas A&M and University of Texas. The Navy also had us deploy a satellite. It's a lot of fun to be on the crew and have a chance to do this. It's a spectacular thing to watch as you send objects off into their own orbits into space. This canister was actually supposed to come apart like that. You see 2 spheres released. They are still now, all of these satellites are sending signals to the ground where the signals are being analyzed, and we're learning more about the upper atmosphere as well as our laser defense system on the Earth. And then on landing day, a lot of preparation, a lot of work on the last few hours in space as you get ready for this. I had the chance to be on the flight deck. There was Julie and Mark and Doug. And we're getting ready to come into the atmosphere. As you know, 3,000 degrees on the leading edge of the wing as the friction builds up as you enter the atmosphere. That's plasma coming up over the top of the windows there. And you'll see Mark here in the commander's seat demonstrating our first effects of gravity that we're able to feel as we come back after 16 days. Koichi's on the mid-deck, and he hasn't felt this for 3.5 months. And then we come in. It's really spectacular to have a chance to you do your deorbit burn over the Indian Ocean. And very soon after that, about 30 minutes later, you're coming in for a landing. You were able to watch through the window, see Central America go by, then Cuba, and then suddenly over Florida as you come into your steep glider descent from Mach 25 down to about 300 knots as Roman puts it down to a very soft landing here. You'll see the drogue chute come out. That'll help save the brakes and the wheels as we slow down at the end of the runway. And after that, we had a chance to get out of the orbiter. Koichi, by standard protocol, had to stay inside, but we were able to get out, walk around, and take a look at the vehicle that had taken such good care of us over the last 16 days. It's a real tribute to all the tens of thousands of people that, and really hundreds of thousands around the world that put together such an event. We're really glad you're able to experience a little bit of it, probably in greater detail, perhaps than anyone has been able to before, certainly more real time through Twitter. So hope you enjoyed it. And thanks very much.
Well, I guess you could see why sometimes if you wonder why I'm not sending lots and lots of tweets, it's because there's just not a lot of time.